Orthodox tendency.
Hey guys, let's start over again.
Wait,
The mic was muted the
by
whole
the way,
fucking
guys,
time.
we just killed them on capitalism.
With the mic was muted the whole fucking time. We're drinking coffee, ladies and gentlemen. The whole time, the microphone was muted.
I literally defeated Marxism in 60 seconds. And, it was muted.
No, it was muted. Sorry, guys.
Another communist conspiracy.
By the way, there we got. I said it's Reed Coverdale and Clint Russell. Obviously, Liberty Lockdown, naturalist, capitalist, libertarian-minded. My good friend Wyatt Reed, Courtney, who was calling herself a leftist for a while. I don't know about that right now. Me, I consider myself a leftist with libertarian views and sorts. So different ideologies here at the Rage Against the War Machine coming together to talk about fucking imperialism, to push back against regime change, and push back about what's going on in Ukraine right now.
Well, you say that, but we've all managed to come together, put aside whatever ideological differences, because we all think nuclear war is kind of the main threat right now. But as Pasta was saying while we were on air, but not on it, I think we got to figure out how we can start breaking this unity down as soon as possible. And immediately trying to find the weak points. What do we disagree about the most strong?
You know.
Blow this shit up right now.
It hasn't even started. Let's tear it down.
He's laughing, and he's completely wrong, though. He's making fun because we need to have these conversations because cancel culture has now been thrusted in our system. Let me tell you something. I didn't know the libertarians had cancel culture until just recently. Yeah. Like, you got the same shit going on that we have over here.
It's not as bad as it was a year ago, too. Like, it's actually gotten better. So
it was worse?
Yes.
Hi, whoa, can you explain that?
I mean, they tried to cancel the entire Mises Caucus, which was the kind of Ron Paul super anti-war wing of the Libertarian Party. They didn't want us involved at all, really. And then we took it over. So they were trying to cancel. They called all of us fascists and Nazis and racists and sexist and all these other things, when really what we have was just a lack of decorum. Most of us just hate PC culture and we want to say inappropriate things because we think it's funny and we think that's the genesis of humor. They extrapolate that into us having sincerely held beliefs about things that we don't. So
you might have said things that were racist,
yes,
or something like that, but you're saying because it was funny.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, you got to be
She was
kind
just in the
of
car with me for a half an hour. She knows I say crazy shit that's racist and funny.
They go far. That's true. And I've been around a lot of stand-ups, and I was like, wow, this is pretty far. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you. Not far enough.
Tower Jane.
There you go.
But a lot of comedians are libertarians. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking just, and to Wyatt's point, and really honestly, but I think that's the problem, is that they have cancel culture. We don't have these conversations. Like what we were just talking right now and stuff like that. You can't do that. We saw with a lot of organizers on the left, saw a lot of organizers in the Libertarian Party. You can't go over there and speak. You can't have these conversations. That person's a fucking Nazi, right, and you can't speak it. But the thing that I found about the Mises Caucus is that they were the most anti-regime. They were the most anti-war. They were the most for civil liberties. They were the most for freedom of press. And those things, to me, seem to combat racism, misogyny, and all those things more than anything. I've said for a long time, the most racist thing we could do is go around and bomb indigenous people in their homeland. What's more indigenous than that than some stupid Trumper that's sitting on his porch drinking a Meisterbrow and using wrong pronouns?
I think that's the bigger point here is like we don't find the microaggression type of language to be worthy of our consideration when you have actual institutional bombing of people of all nationalities. So it's like I really believe that that's what the Mises Caucus was about, was taking over the Libertarian Party so that it better represented what we truly care about most, which is preventing World War III, preventing nuclear war, trying to fight against the military-industrial complex, and then diminishing the size of the state. And hopefully that's what we're going to do. We'll
okay, well, let me ask you.
Withering away of the state, if you will.
Yes.
See, I feel like I looked at this from a very outsider perspective where I wasn't even trying to get involved in any, like basically I just am trying now to look at the policy. What is the policy that this rally is about? Like, what are we at? What's the goal of that actual, rally? So I've been trying to look at stuff more like that rather than letting like a bunch of other noise from, these people. I mean, basically, like a lot of white guys are racist. A lot of liberal people are racist. They say things that they think are helpful, and they are racist. And I've had a lot of racism experience, like in liberal universities, like when I was in college. So I think, it's just like, not allowing people to make their own decisions. I never appreciated that, and like really boxing people in.
Very paternalistic on the left when it comes to minorities. In my experience, like
Yes.
from what I've seen, the way they talk about minority people is it's crazy to me. So yeah.
It's bad. They make it worse, definitely.
Savvy Sabs is on there. Wherever you're at, get your ass in here, Savvy Sabs. Come have a conversation with us. We got other libertarians coming through later on, so I got a bag of libertarians I can pull from and stuff. But that guy down over there, if you haven't watched the last show, Reed Coverdale and I, we met a couple years ago on Tulsi's campaign. There was a couple other libertarians in the house, the Jackman brothers, Reed. It was a bunch of people from Tulsi's campaign that were ex-Bernie Sanders peoples, Democrats. Some of them were Democratic Socialists, and we were all in a room and we were starting to talk together. We're like, holy shit, we have a lot in common, especially when it comes to anti-war, especially when it comes to Julian Assange and civil liberties. It's like we felt so strongly about that we said that back then, hey man, this is maybe a coalition for the future.
Yeah.
Been doing a lot of shows, doing these things, and now we're getting to speak at this rally over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is some great shit, especially the fact that you guys are libertarian. You're an actual Marxist, right? Kind of, yeah. Don DeBar was.
He wants us dead.
I want you dead, you son of a bitch.
The thing is,
Gun-toting motherfucker.
the thing
Sorry.
is, the important distinction that we got to make is between coalitions and moderation. Like, Ron Paul's talked a lot about this. He and Dennis Kucinich were very polar opposite on economics and lots of things, but they would work together all the time on civil liberties and anti-imperialism. I mean, when I was on Tulsi's campaign, I was convincing her staff that we need to abolish the Department of Education, and she was campaigning on like free college and stuff. So like, I was willing to vote for her and I was willing to, rally behind this anti-war stuff, but there was nothing about my values that I was compromising. And I think that's how we need to approach this. Like, we don't need to be like, okay, let's all meet in the middle and forget everything. It's just like, hey, this thing I agree with you on, I'll work. Like, even with some of these neocons, if they agree with me on something, like I would work with them on that particular issue. It's that, what's his name? I forget whose quote it is, but it's like, I will work with nobody to do evil and anyone to do good.
Yeah, I know that is a conservative dude.
Stalin,
man. And Stalin also said, right, and this is a fib, that it's not those who cast the vote, it's those who count the votes. But that's not Stalin. They just kind of put it on him. And there is a little bit of that right now. I think this is the one thing, too, is about the Libertarian Party. Sometimes you do have members that feel they need to piss on socialism and piss on communism. When I called you and you were like, yeah, well, I wouldn't have said that. I'm like saying, when you say that socialism is bad, you're really not telling a socialist anything more than the fact that his issues aren't being addressed. Because a lot of the socialists in America, they're not like, I'm a Trotskyite, I'm a Lenin, I'm a Stalinist. They just are like, we see corporations coming in, fucking us over. Why can't the people control the means of production, right?
Well, and I've told you that many libertarians, including myself, have definitely come back to the table to discuss the corruption that exists within corporate America and the corporate elite globally. I think that the root of the issue, though, from the libertarian perspective, is more that they have a relationship to the central banks globally. And then they have supranational organizations that also structure much of global trade, including the World Bank. And like, these are big problems, but I don't think that we don't see the problem exactly the same, but we are getting closer together in terms of like identifying, like, there's a huge problem when you have like 5 businesses that run 80% of industry. Like that's not an okay thing. Yeah. My explanation for why it's occurred, though, is largely a product of the government that we have and the government that we've grown. So I don't know how necessarily that we can have a meeting of the minds on this, but I feel like to a large extent we've gotten closer together. So that's just my two cents.
My only pushback on that would be, I think it's a recurring theme where you see like monopolization of certain resources, and this happens several times throughout the course of American history, where and then you had to break up the trusts, et cetera, and that was the only, government intervention was at that point the only way to work around that, which whether you argue it was created by the state or not, but
that's what I would argue.
Yeah, I would. And I would argue that had the state, instead of breaking them up, had they backed off and stopped giving them patent protection and all these other protections that allow them to maintain and increase the size of their monopoly, then it probably would have been market competition to break it. But your point's well taken.
Yeah.
So my thing is, just let New Hampshire become a libertarian hellscape where all of our horrible ideas are put to use. and then step back and judge it.
And
if
you
it-
guys
if
can
it
have
doesn't
New
work,
York.
You guys can be like, see.
I think
So,
New York
I think
might have
fair.
something to
Yeah,
say.
probably.
I don't think our goals necessarily have to contradict. Like, we don't have to do the whole country. Just
Yeah,
New
right.
Hampshire, and we'll see how it
But
goes.
what is with the thought process that people go, okay, we use our tax dollars for war, we use it for all this other bullshit. Why can't we just allocate our tax resources?
Because they never do. Think about.
But why can't we? What if we were able to do it and
We
spend it
can't.
on education?
We
spend it
can't
on healthcare?
because that would undercut the only reason that we have to get people to go into the military, which is the free college and the healthcare.
Part of it for sure.
That is why we will never have free college or free healthcare, no matter what anybody says. They go to Congress, oh, we're going to give you. No, they're not, and that's why.
Not unless we get rid of all the oligarchs,
We put
Mussolini style,
benevolent people in there.
like
Who do
me.
the right
So
thing.
like I will rule the world because I will be fair.
Well,
Oh, okay.
Pasta for president.
There you go.
That's what everybody says.
President
I know, right? That's what everybody does.
Actually, the most fair.
Anyway, I think what we're doing right now is actually, first of all, it's a long tradition of it in the United States, in the anti-war movement, putting all these differences aside, saying, you know what, you have Catholics standing up alongside people that are like hardcore, like pro-abortion, all basically putting aside these differences, saying, you know what, like number one issue is the war machine.
Yep.
We're coming back. It's a renaissance of the anti-war movement, and it's the same thing that we've seen happen in Europe, in these countries that are actively being affected by the anti-Russian sanctions, by basically the implosion, the controlled demolition of the European economy.
Well, as well as the Nord Stream. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The same. It's all the same
Hashtag the
stuff.
Nord Stream pipeline didn't blow itself up.
But all these
Hashtag we did it.
We did.
where you have seen these big protests in Europe, in the Czech Republic, in France, wherever, it's right and left, whatever these words mean anymore.
Sure.
It's these people who are not a part of this neoliberal centrist camp, who reject all that, who are willing to put their differences aside.
Right.
That is who is coming out
Are
to
they as
reject the war
polarized
machine.
as we are in this way? Like, I feel like, because I feel
Totally.
like so much of the reason why something like this doesn't happen is because it's like all fear. It's like, you can't be associated with this person, like, especially on the left, that happens a lot. It's like, oh, well, this person talked to this other person, so they're out, So
Cancel
it's that
culture.
fear, yeah, exactly,
It happens
driving
on our side,
everything.
too, all the time.
And that's
Is
funny
that-
because I thought you guys
they
didn't
less
have
of
that.
that here? Or?
Well, we don't.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust
In
me.
Europe,
It's like
I-
party
I-
everybody
yes,
is scary for us.
because people are a little bit less like identitarian, I guess. You could
It's
call it
become
that.
more that way here because it didn't used to be that way. That you used to be friends with somebody who was a Republican, no big deal. Now it's like, oh my
Right.
god, I think
You're talking to a Trumper.
Yeah,
And there's this kind of like, so there's like a segment, like a liberal segment in Europe that basically has adopted the American race understanding and kind of transposes it onto Europe
Yep.
in this very obviously useless way.
It's useless here too because like it's so historical, but it's really useless there because they're like taking on the sins of America, race
Right.
relations, and they're applying it.
Yeah,
So,
it doesn't
It's-
really make sense. And
You're
so,
saying
like,
it's
the left
useless,
there
but it's
hasn't-
useful to those who implement it, right? Because it's more of a device.
well, it's useless
Back.
in terms of actually getting to the root of what they're concerned about, in my opinion. It divides us
Well,
further based
yeah,
off of race.
and
as opposed to
mainly
bringing
it's
us
just
together.
it's like a byproduct of the kind of middle upper class, the aspiring upper classes of Europe, sort of
Yeah.
metropolitan. They just kind of follow whatever America does. They just like European sort of culture and this idea of like leading whatever. It's all kind of gone by the wayside, and like it's the culture following the economic relationship, right? That economic relationship is totally subservient. So now the culture is dying, and it's honestly pretty sad,
It is sad.
you know?
And I actually learned that when I was looking at I was interviewing some of the trekkers at the Freedom Convoy,
Yeah.
and I was like, why the fuck are you guys talking about MAGA? Like, why is that
Right.
even a thing there?
Right.
But then I realized that like it's not just our culture, but our political culture that has also been exported to much of the rest of the world. And I
Right.
find that, it's fascinating, but it's also devastating because our political culture is a train wreck right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And to export that to the rest of the world is horrific.
Probably the one thing they don't want,
Yeah.
but they got it
You
anyway.
definitely
Right.
don't want that.
Can we all agree that even though none of us like Trump's policies, we do kind of miss like the hysterics that he provided?
I miss the reactions
he was
to him
the
on Twitter.
funniest person.
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
Excuse me, what's your name? Fake news.
Only
I have
Big-
nothing to
big
say about schools and guns in America. Oh yes, by the way, China. Where's Jackman? Get him in the house and stuff.
He did a lot to take the mask off of like respectability from
Right.
politics, and I think that anyone who's a political dissident had to appreciate that.
Well, that's
to
what
some
they
extent.
hated about him. They didn't actually hate him because he was a racist.
In my
They didn't hate him
opinion,
because he was misogynist.
In
He
my
said
opinion-
grab him by
Yeah,
the pussy.
good
They
point,
hated him
good
because he
point.
ripped the whole mask off. He said, you know, Sean Hannity sat him down. He said, or no, it was Bill O'Reilly. He said, well, you know, what, you don't hate Putin? Putin's a killer. And he said, a lot of people are killers. There's a lot of killers out there.
Yeah.
And that was the moment you knew it. It was like,
Well,
oh, it's all over.
And when
Yeah,
he
that's
said,
it.
and when he said I know how the campaigns work. I've been funding both sides.
Right,
I was
exactly.
like, yo,
Right.
you're not supposed to say that. dude.
Right. Not out loud.
it was necessary to go from Trump to Biden, in my opinion. Like it was the most accelerationist collapse of any respect for the office. It
Well,
was perfect.
I'm very curious to see. We'll start with Courtney too. Your thoughts on this? Me and Reed kind of agree. The only guy, the best candidate running for president right now is Trump. Like he's the only one that's anti-Ukraine. And what are your thoughts? I mean, is there any Democrat that you would even want?
Not
in
even
front of-
Marianne Williamson
Oh.
would say that she was against.
Hashtag
funding
Marianne.
How did they
Shut up.
how did they psyop the broader left movement into supporting him? Because like the right is not nearly as gung ho about this being an endless war from what I've seen. And
Right
whereas
now-
the broader left seems to
right
be
now,
super gung ho.
Ukraine, because it's Biden's war. As soon as that's done, they'll be all in for China's war in a heartbeat.
Oh no, of course,
Right?
of course.
So it's just there. It's once again, and here's the thing too. Like they're not for less censorship in the Republican Party. They're pissed off that we're not censoring Iran
Yes.
or China enough. They want them censored more.
But my point is,
Yeah.
how did the defending democracy narrative sell so fucking well with the broader left? I don't understand it because like that's what they run on is like
Because it's the whole
defending
Samantha
democracy.
power, it's the
Ignorancy, though, right?
Samantha power
Ignorance.
effect, it's the
I'm
responsibility
gonna
to
make a
protect,
controversial
it's the
statement
hotel Darfurization of the liberal left in
So I
America.
understand that there's been an anti-war left for a while, but a lot of people, I remember they asked Tulsi this, and it was so stupid. They were like, "What happened to your party? Your party used to be anti-war. The Democrats got us into World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Libya, and Syria."
And Ukraine.
Well, we'll also
And
love
Ukraine.
it.
Well, that was-
well,
that was
in
like
Ukraine-
Democrats, but I think what I'm talking about is more the grassroots. Like the grassroots
Sure.
seems to have also become more pro-war, and that is really disturbing. to
I'm
me.
just
So
saying
that's
that
why-
Democrats.
Not that-
They got brought into
Syria.
partisan politics,
No, I agree.
right? And it was the election of Obama that really
Totally.
solidified and formalized all the you had people who went out and marched year after year against the Iraq War. That Obama comes into office, all of a sudden it's just like, well, we did it.
Right.
It's over.
Mm.
Wasn't it
And
even?
then-
Liberalism has
Then the drone flies over
Right.
Somalia.
Yeah.
and then the little kid looks up, oh, it's being sent by a black
Wasn't it
man.
even? Wasn't it when the Democrats took the House back in 2006? Like it didn't even take till 2008. Like once Pelosi was Speaker of the House in 2006, I feel like it already died.
I think the last major anti-war march was in 06 from what Angela McArdle said on stream yesterday. So maybe
Yeah.
Wow.
scary shit.
Okay, did I think Trump was the best candidate?
So these are your options. You got Biden, maybe DeSantis, maybe Nikki Haley for sure.
They've got
John Bolton and Mike Pompeo.
oh, just out of the Republicans. Okay.
No, that's
assuming
everyone-
Biden
that's everyone
runs,
that's
Oh,
announced.
what
If
about-
Tulsi
you don't
runs,
think-
she's better than Trump.
You don't
Oh
think
yeah.
Gavin
Tulsi's
Newsom's gonna run?
Blue Republicans?
Well, I don't know if they'll
I feel like
primary.
he would
Who?
run.
Do you think they'll
Gavin
primary him
Newsom.
if
I don't
Biden
know.
chooses not to?
See, as a pro-secession person, I support Gavin McGinnis running for president and
Gavin
hopefully
McGinnis.
winning. Or not Gavin McGinnis.
I was
Gavin
like,
Newsom. That might do it too, though. Gavin McGinnis for
Wow.
president.
I was like,
Oh, Gavin McGinnis for president.
That's a whole different type of secession.
It's the
It's the opposite states. It's the same
Yeah, I
place.
mean, we got one microphone. That's the problem.
So that's enough of that.
Okay.
They said they can hear us, but we're a little low.
Mm.
So
More
Gavin Newsom,
Because you yanked the
2024.
microphone.
I mean,
I was trying to get all of us. But
Yeah, well, just pull a chair in.
gosh.
I'm all the way in, dude. If I get any closer, I'm gonna be sitting on Courtney's lap.
So I think DeSantis is worse than Trump because I think Trump has no political anchor or compass at all. He's kind
Right.
of like just adrift and does
Yeah.
what people tell him to do. Where I think DeSantis is already determined to be the worst that Trump could be. Like all the neoconservative policies,
Right.
all the overthrowing governments.
All
in
the
South
bad things
America.
about Trump with none of the funny or good bits.
Yeah.
No, I think he's worse than Trump when it comes to Latin American intervention. Like
But
this
I'm
guy
saying,
will
like-
invade Cuba tomorrow.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't give a
Mhm.
shit about anything. He's just like, this
Right.
guy told me it would be a great idea to bomb Iran, but the guy who brought me my lunch said maybe not, so maybe we don't bomb Iran.
Right.
That's
Maybe
Trump.
we just bomb half the
I mean, I guess
country.
he's the most, the least.
Where's the oil? We
By the way, China.
Yeah,
Gotta finish with China.
but DeSantis would just be like, yeah, no, we're bombing everything.
We compromise. We only bomb Guantanamo.
That's it. Well, while we got Courtney Banks here, we might as well talk about culture issues, right? Since culture.
What about everybody else? who's
Well,
here?
they're here. They're not leaving. You're gone. So
I mean,
they're gonna be on
okay,
shows early. I know.
okay.
throwing you under the bus and stuff. But I mean, let's talk from a libertarian's point of view too, as well, with the culture wars. I've heard that Dr. Ron Paul has been anarcho-palooza, saying that cultural Marxism is what's killing America. Now, number one, this is what I think we need to explain to you. There's no such thing as cultural Marxism. It's just made up. There was nothing that didn't come from Marx. It didn't.
I know.
It didn't. It was campus Marxism, is what Stephen calls it. It was kind of, let's get the culture wars, but it is a way to be, I think, the most divisive thing for American citizens by far. If you can get those issues to be number one, then they're going to forget about the wars. They're going to forget about economics. They're going to forget about all these things. So maybe you guys can give a little bit about that. And Courtney, anytime you want to jump on in, throw yourself under the bus.
The coining of cultural Marxism, as far as I'm concerned, like its etymology comes from the utilization, instead of it being a class separation in society, instead it's the identitarian separation. So it becomes your race and gender and and sexual orientation, whatever.
But it still divides the people, right?
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah.
I mean, it does divide the people, and I'm totally opposed to it. But to say that it doesn't come from Marx, okay, it's still a descriptor of like what we're fighting against. So,
But don't you see the harm in that? That the
in
fact
fighting
that
against it.
for naming it cultural Marxism, because now you can manufacture consent to take out Marxist governments, because that's the evil
I
thing
don't
that's
think
coming
that's
to.
necessarily all. I mean,
But I oppose imperialism, so it's like I'm not trying to take out any Marxist governments.
I mean,
But
I'm against
we have to be a little bit smarter in
I'm against
our
half.
marketing, because we want other people to come along with us. Because not everybody's going to be necessarily, they'll be opposed to imperialism unless it's the Chinese Communist Party that wants to turn us into, fucking robots and give us social credit scores and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So that's why they're so like, okay, it's China, it's a balloon, blow it fucking down, because it's a communist thing, and they equate that to Marxism, and that's why they're okay with this going to war with China, in my mind.
Well,
Sorry.
I try to tell a lot of conservatives who hate China so much, like, well, stop trying to make us like China. Like, you want to fast track death penalties for drug dealers,
Yeah.
And even Trump said,
Well,
yeah,
and-
Xi Jinping told me that it takes care of the drugs real fast. Like, no problem, we just kill them. And it's like, okay, so you're so scared.
and social credit scores and medical health passes. There's a litany of examples on how we're far closer. Not to mention the controlled state-based economy, which is, in my opinion, very similar between China and America at this point. You guys may disagree, but that's my honest.
Well,
opinion.
I think it's again, and this is a point that I've made before. I think the difference is over here, the oligarchs control the state, and over there, the state controls the oligarchs. I do think there is, because whatever, death penalties for
Is
drug
there-
dealers,
is there a
I think that's
huge
insane.
difference
But
if
death
you have
penalties,
oligarchs?
death
Does it matter?
penalties for some oligarch that manufactures baby formula that has like lead in it that a bunch of kids get sick and die from. Like, yeah,
Over here, they
Yeah,
get enriched.
I support that guy.
Yeah.
Over here, the Norfolk Southern assholes, what they got to decide. First of all, we made the decision to burn all those chemicals because it was on their say so. They said, "Oh, this is eating into our profits. The railroads are stopped.
Well,
We got to get those things running. Dump it in the river. Burn the shit."
No, they
Wipe
put
my
it in a
hands.
ditch,
To
covered it up, put tracks over it, then burned some of it off.
To clarify, though,
Yeah.
Norfolk Southern said that they had conversations with DOD before making that decision.
Well, the
So-
DOD does the same thing where I'm from. I live down the road from the Radford Arsenal in Southwest Virginia. Once a month, they burn off all those shells, the artillery shells that are killing civilians in the Donbass right now. I'm blanking on the word, but the fuel, basically the propellant, I should say, that's used is manufactured in Radford, Virginia, at the arsenal down there. once a month they burn off all these excess chemicals and dump that directly into the New River, which has extremely predictable health consequences for, I know kids my age, late 20s, that have cancer in their throats because they drink the water.
Does the
I've
EPA
seen
cover up
you
for
pull
them?
fish out of that river that have tumors bigger than their heads.
So why,
Like,
why
that
is
is
there
a
no
deal-
liability?
Because it's national security, because it's critical infrastructure. It's deemed to be beyond that level.
Well,
So when there was the oil spill in the Gulf in, I forget what year that was, the EPA capped the damages that BP could be sued for. In the world that Clint and I would like, you would be able to sue the socks off of them for ruining your property, or if you could prove that some corporation dumped a chemical into a river and it got you sick, you would be able to sue the socks
Like,
off them.
same with Norfolk Southern. Like, they shouldn't be able to go around and offer $1,000 to have someone sign a contract under duress to get testing done so that
Right.
they cannot turn around and sue. Like, that should be illegal. There should be I mean, the liability protection that exists because of the size of our state is a huge problem. And I'm not excusing the corporate behavior. It's
Right.
evil and they ought to be bankrupted over it. But the reason that they're not is because of state protection.
Yeah, the government.
Well, it's
protects
one
it.
hand washing the other. You know, it's
Yeah.
one can't really exist without the other. I would, and it's
I
the same
agree.
thing. Yeah.
I agree. They would not be of their size. They would not have the protections they do if not for the state and their relationship to the state, not to mention the special treatment when it comes to government contracts and everything else, not to mention the Federal Reserve, which artificially keeps interest rates low so that they can borrow and
Let's not
their
also
empire.
forget when it comes to this situation, the railroad workers, which got kneecapped by Joe Biden, he took away all their fucking leverage. They just weren't talking about
And
money.
the supply.
They were talking about updating the fucking railroads. They were talking about safety measures, and all that shit got pushed aside. And what do we have? 5 fucking derailments now.
Yeah.
And it's
Well-
derailment. I don't know if it's derailment season or unidentified flying object season or mass shooting season.
Well,
I get them all
it's all
fucking mixed up at this
Did you hear
point.
what Buttigieg said? He said, "Well, you know, people are focusing a lot on this one, but
There's
there's
10,000
1,000
here.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
There's
but
a
you're like,
1,000
we need
here."
derailments. It's not like fucking. But that's the thing. We have railroad technology from the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And China, socialist, democratic.
As ghost cities.
Not anymore. They filled them up.
I would rather have.
Yeah.
I would rather
a
have.
lot of ghost cities.
I would
Let me
rather
tell you what
have
China doesn't
empty
Extreme
houses.
poverty like we do.
Yeah,
They almost eradicated that shit. Like,
They
sorry.
have extreme poverty like we do, but they didn't start from the same place in the relative recent history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're
Yeah, they
conquering
came from
society.
mass starvation and all the way to where they're at is incredibly impressive.
Mhm.
I would argue that's a product of them loosening state restrictions and going towards a more
Well, it's
capitalist model.
both.
but-
It's both.
Capital does what communism does have
What
free
did
markets,
and
right?
Deng
Sure.
Xiaoping
They don't control everything.
he said, you know, I don't care if a cat's black or white as long as it catches mice.
Right.
Right. And that's
As-
that's my
That's ideological flexibility. I would like to see more people
Right.
having that.
yeah.
So which is a weird
Well,
thing to say,
a lot of
but I'm
Marxists agree with
praising,
that, you know.
but I did. So.
Yeah. No, I think we agree on that one too. Another thing that I ended up agreeing very much with like libertarians on recently was where I'm from in Virginia. They tried to stick what's called the Mountain Valley Pipeline through a ton of people's land.
Right.
Extremely
Eminent domain, probably.
yeah,
Oh,
all this eminent domain shit.
Yeah.
And it ended up this very interesting kind of crossover where you have like anarchists and socialists.
And green.
Yeah, using basically property rights
Right.
to be able to oppose this
As they should.
mass, destructive and insanely dangerous pipeline. It's been no one has ever built a pipeline on the level of grades that it's being built on in this region. So you see all these leaks. It's gonna be bad if they manage to finish that down in the woods. But
I'm totally unaware of that one, but I'm glad to hear that there was another coalition that could be found. So that's good.
yeah,
Nah, so tomorrow we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon. We're gonna have 37 minutes, 38 minutes. We're gonna have 7 more minutes and stuff.
Going fast.
Gonna wrap it up. Yeah, don't worry. Listen, I'll go for hours, but we got shit to do.
We're not your waifus.
You know what I'm saying? And
Well, let me just say to close out, I have had a great time meeting the three, or well, obviously I've met you before, but meeting the three of you of my political opposition. I think that like if you're actually able to just treat people like human beings, you can find that they're fucking awesome people. So
yeah, absolutely.
you know, we have differences of opinion that are sincere and
Clint, you're naive. They
and
all want you
heartfelt.
dead.
I know they probably want me dead at the
We've
end of
been
the day.
talking about you.
But this is why I believe in 2A, and this is why I have a bunch of guns, because I can't allow Wyatt to take me out.
Wyatt's got a rubber band in his finger. Got him in the eye and stuff. But it's kind of crazy. There are like people like anarchists who think libertarians and think that communists want to just kill everybody sometimes. And likewise, communists are like, you're capitalists, they gotta fucking go. So
Right.
there is that element out there, but those are a bunch of stupid people. And,
Well, they're like, yeah, they don't not necessarily plants or whatever, but they're useful idiots.
It's
almost,
easier
you
to
know what
rely
I'm saying?
on stereotypes. It's just quicker and
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate my point from earlier that I want lefties to let New Hampshire become a libertarian hellscape and just completely hands off and let us show how awful it is. And I encourage the communist takeover of California, and I want it to happen fully.
they already call it Commie California. And
Well,
stuff.
no, I'm for
California.
for
California.
full social revolution there and everything. Let it just happen.
They got so much private industry running everything over there, dude.
Well-
They make profits off everything. That's a pure example
I want
of
you guys to
capitalism
be-
just running free.
I want
and
you
you have your
guys.
friends in the state.
I want you guys to be able to point to New Hampshire and be like, look at that awful capitalist hellscape. Like, you don't ever want to look like that. Just let us destroy ourselves.
Sounds lovely. And for the record, I have half of my family that still lives in California because I was born and raised there. And I would rather them not go full
Communism.
cultural revolution
Gotcha.
or whatever.
Personally, I have no personal attachments to New Hampshire, so you guys do whatever you
Go
want.
for it.
you.
No problem. Let us know
No
ourselves,
conflict
yeah.
of interest.
You can have New
You
Hampshire.
can have it.
That's all
Let's
we
sign
want.
off.
We did
There
it.
you go.
Anybody
We
have something
claim
to
San
sign?
Diego, you guys get LA and Frisco, we're good to go.
See, you know how neocons
And-
like,
Let's
they want
get off
to shape.
California. I
You know
think.
how neocons want to shape other countries to like. I'm so libertarian that I don't even give a fuck about Vermont. I'm just like, just give us New Hampshire and that's it.
That's
all we
it.
want.
Take Vermont.
I've actually become so radicalized that I'm like, in terms of wanting peaceful secession, that I'm like, I don't care if they ban all firearms in New York. I don't care. I don't care. But I want the tank in the great state of Florida. So
Gotcha.
fair trade. Fair
That's
trade.
right. All right, guys, that's it. Guys, make sure you go to everybody's website. We'll start from that end. Let everybody know where they could find you and your name and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I was recently reinstated to Twitter, so you can follow me at Reed Coverdale. And then my podcast is called The Naturalist Capitalist. Got it still on YouTube. They took it away but gave it back. And I got Rumble, Odyssey, and then all audio streaming platforms. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Reed Coverdale and Telegram. And I have a Substack at Reed Coverdale. Go follow.
Read, let the free market just work itself out.
Give us New Hampshire and let us ruin it.
Sure.
I have the inverse problem of Reed. He's getting all of his accounts back. I just lost my YouTube channel, so please,
You did?
yeah.
Damn.
So please go subscribe to Liberty Lockdown over on Rumble. All podcatchers at Liberty Lockpod on Twitter.
David Icke?
No, James Lindsay.
Uh,
James Lindsay, and then I did an anti-war speech that Scott Ritter
I
hosted.
fucking
Do it.
I listened to it.
That was my last episode on YouTube.
I didn't listen on YouTube. I listened to it on Spotify,
Right.
and stuff. Yeah.
I'm still up on all the audio spots, so you can find me.
It's
Just
really
search-
unfair. He got banned for reading Scott Ritter's words. I had Scott Ritter on my show.
And
he
you
didn't
read
get
the
banned.
speech that he was gonna
You're so
say.
crazy.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I got to put on YouTube, and I hadn't posted anything for a month because they had given me 2 strikes for my James Lindsay episode. Anyways, I will be on Timcast IRL on Thursday with Josie, the redhead libertarian. That's going to be really fun. So check us out.
Oh, and subscribe to Tower Gang.
Tower Gang.
Yes, whatever that is, subscribe to it.
Yeah,
That's
he's
what
got
I
an
got.
endorsement right here.
I don't even know.
That's crazy. They took down. Hey, they got a new CEO over at YouTube.
I heard that they fired her just because of my channel.
Susan Wojcicki got Liberty Lockdown. You fucked with the wrong libertarian. Sorry, go ahead, Wyatt.
Yep. I am Wyatt Reed. Follow me on Telegram, and in keeping with this getting banned and things, you can find me on Twitter. I'm shadow banned like hell. I'm search banned, so you have to type in my full name and just go straight to it. I won't show up, but it's at Wyatt Reed 13. Just press enter, and I will appear, even though you
Think about the fucking the shit with him and Fiorella. Same thing. Search ban. Like you
Yeah.
you got to type in her whole name, and it will still list all these other people. Like she's the only Fiorella. That's my friend, you asshole.
Right.
So just think about what Russian state media, Putin propagandists. What did they say in the Business Insider? It's not sure how. Oh, that was Caleb. Sorry, my
They
bad.
hit me in CNN.
CNN.
a while back.
Let me just say, there's a reason that the anti-war left and right ought to work together, or the libertarian anti-war movement ought to work with you guys, because same exact treatment is
Yeah.
what we have
Right.
been dealing with. I have been shadow banned. Actually, I was on Simcast IRL 6 weeks ago.
It's not
and
because of
I
our
got no
social
follow-
views.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
not because of our social views
Yes.
that they are banning.
I got no followers after going on Timcast IRL, the biggest YouTube channel. None.
Yeah.
So they had me completely shadow banned when I was on there.
Yeah.
And I think personally that the reason that we're all targeted is because of our anti-war views. So.
Yeah, could be. I think it's elections too for me. I mean, that
Oh,
shit's
sure.
just like I've been like, it's not about your ideology; it's about your issues. I was a leftist who believed that the election in 2020 was not the best one. Sorry, YouTube, see I'm censored, right?
I was waiting for you to go for it.
It was the
Let's go.
Holy
shit.
cleanest election of all time since China. But yeah, I was a COVID guy. Like I didn't believe in the COVID protocols. I was one of we were standing alone. It was us and Kim Ivermectin. And we were saying those things. So it was the issues in which they sent you. But this is what I'm saying. We don't need to see who's been banned. We need to see the full algorithm in my mind, how they do this.
Really?
Because it's not just about putting us down. It's about who they lift up as well.
Of course,
So
yeah.
you use addition by addition or addition by subtraction either way. So that's what we need to see. Miss Banks, how you doing?
Hello. We not banned, but we were. I think we did some Hunter Biden coverage of the laptop stuff. They didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. Only one strike on our channel, okay. But you can find us, Bank Sisters, on Rockfin, Rumble. We've got things on Spotify, stuff like that. And maybe I'll be banned after talking to these people.
Yes. Somebody take a picture. Look at Courtney's wig.
I don't even know these.
I don't even know these libertarians.
They don't even go to this school.
Courtney,
If
you've
you
been
gave me
banned.
all fours, I wouldn't even recognize them. Never met them before.
Never met him before. Don't know that person.
And if I were the president, it would be the cleanest, best cleanup of all times in the history of cleanups. Anyways, Pasta Jardula. Excuse me.
The #1 podcast.
Number one
in
podcast
Washington, D.C.
Nobody podcasts better than me.
in the history of all podcasts. Pasta Jardula Combo Couch. You guys know it. AM Wake Up to as well. Rage Against the War Machine will probably be on later on. I got some more thumbnails in the queue. Make sure you go over to the Naturalist Capitalist. We'll do some shows from his non-banned YouTube channel, and then maybe we'll get banned later. So see you tomorrow. If you can help out in any ways, go to the Rage Against the War Machine website too as well. If you want to help us out, all the links are down below. We love you. Thank you so much. Say goodbye, everybody.
Hugs and kisses.
From libertarians, Marxists, whatever the fuck,
Independents.
independents.
Leftists.
We're all here's the thing. We might be different isms, but we're all independent thinkers. Come back and watch us again.
Catch us tomorrow. Come to DC.
Come to DC.
Half of us are talking. Come check it out.
Yes. Half of us are talking.